Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Kevin Blekicki Show in junction with the Ryan Show. This will be episode number 38. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to this program. I greatly appreciate it. We have an amazing show for you this week. I'm going to lightly touch on the Gamecocks blowing a 30-3 lead to number 3 Texas A&M. It's absolutely embarrassing. And I'm also going to touch on Justin Fields getting benched as the Jets quarterback. I'm not going to go full into those topics because I did address them as they came out on my YouTube channel, Kevin Blekicki. I made videos about them. And what I've been doing is I've been trying to make videos about topics as they happen. That way, they are more relevant and I get more traction that way. And then on my weekly show, I kind of just lightly touch on things and kind of wrap everything up. So that is my plan going forward with this channel. So if you want my full breakdown of the game between South Carolina and Texas A&M and the benching of Justin Fields, feel free to go to my YouTube channel at Kevin Blekicki, where this video will be posted. In addition to those topics, we will also break down this last week in the NFL. It was absolutely insane. A lot of close games, a lot of game-winning field goals, and Shedeur Sanders also made his NFL debut, so I'll break down that as well as the college football playoff rankings. I'll break down the most recent ones, and we'll also talk about James Franklin getting hired as the head coach of the Virginia Tech Hokies. So all of that is coming up on this episode of the Kevin Blekicki Show. First off and foremost, we have to talk about this Carolina collapse. South Chocolina, as I described it in my YouTube video. There's no two ways about it. You can't lose this game in this fashion. South Carolina has had a terrible season this year. They've only won 3 games all year. They are 3-7. They're terrible. They came into this season with a lot of high expectations. They were a top 15 team. There were talks of them being in the college football playoff. There were talks of Lenora Sellers being your Heisman Trophy winner. But this season has been horrible for South Carolina. They've lost a bunch of games in a row. They started off pretty well at 3-2 and since then have lost 5 games in a row. It's been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible, and you thought that South Carolina might actually play well against Texas A&M. Coming into this game, there really was no hype because it's been such a lost season for South Carolina. Texas A&M is the 3rd ranked team in the country, and Kyle Field is one of the biggest home field advantages, not just in college football, but of all of sports. It is one of the most loud and raucous environments that you can go into. And South Carolina put belt to ass in that first half. They were up 30-3. Everything that they wanted to do on both sides of the football, they were able to do. And it all just collapsed in the second half, and there's just no way around it. This is a loss that you can't have. It's one of those weird situations where are you happy that you were even up that much because you weren't expecting it, or are you disappointed because you feel like you should have won the game when you were up by that much? And for me, it's the second one. You're up by 30-3, and the fact of the matter is that when Texas A&M took the lead 31-30, there was still 10 minutes left. There was still a lot of time for South Carolina to come back in this game, as well as Texas A&M fumbling the ball deep in the red zone and South Carolina having an opportunity to come back and still win that game with just a field goal with about 2 minutes left in the game. So there was still a great chance for South Carolina to come away with a win, and they couldn't do it. And it was completely embarrassing, and there's no excuse for the way that South Carolina played. in the second half. And what really gets me is after the game, Shane Beamer was saying that he was not getting his players excited that and getting them to think that they had already won the game. And we know that's a lie because the South Carolina football Twitter page posted a video of him running into the tumble, screaming and shouting and pumping up the crowd. So we know that he was at least going into that locker room thinking that the game was over. And then post game, he says, "No, we didn't think that the game was over. Don't piss on us and call it rain. We know that you were excited. You know that you guys we know that you took off the foot off the gas pedal. So don't pretend like we're idiots. We saw the video of you celebrating going into the locker room. You thought the game was over. And as a naive South Carolina fan who's been rooting for this team since 2017, I thought the game was over too. I'd never seen a team blow a lead that big before. I thought the game was over. Yeah, maybe you don't do as well in the second half. Maybe you score a touchdown or a field goal. You kind of let the brakes off. Hey, maybe you give up maybe like 15, 20 points, it gets a little closer. Texas A&M is the third ranked team in the country. They are good. You expect them to come back, but 27 points down, the biggest comeback in Texas A&M franchise school history, absolutely unacceptable. And then there was the whole Nick Harbor cop situation where there was some sort of police officer bumping into Nick Harbor. And I don't know what that dude's deal was. He ended up getting relieved of his game day duties. I don't know if he's permanently fired. I mean, he did just kind of shove him, but that's just type of behavior that you just can't have, and it's unwarranted. And I wouldn't have blamed Nick Harbor or any of the South Carolina players if they had come after that guy, because there's no excuse to be bumping into a football player like that. So I'm glad that they got rid of him for that day. We also got to talk about this Justin Fields situation because Justin Fields has officially been benched this week as the Jets quarterback, and Tyrod Taylor is going to be taking over and playing quarterback for the Jets against the Baltimore Ravens. And this hurts. I'm sad about this. I don't want this to happen because he was one of my favorite players coming out of the 2021 draft. I wanted Justin Fields to be drafted over Zach Wilson. I wanted him to be the Jets quarterback coming out of that draft because I was immensely impressed with his effort in the college football playoff game against Clemson. I thought he showed a lot of toughness. He was injured in that game. He showed a lot of resiliency. And we just haven't seen any of that from Justin Fields. And I mean, he went to a situation in Chicago, who is notorious for not developing quarterbacks well. They don't even have a 4,000 yard passer in any season in their franchise's history. Then you go to Pittsburgh, and you think that if there's any player that can be turned around and can have their career put back on track, it's by the coach who has never had a losing season in his career, and that would be Mike Tomlin. And what happens? Justin Fields can't even get saved by Mike Tomlin, and honestly, neither could Russell Wilson. So that whole quarterback room last year just completely fell apart. And then he comes to the Jets. Very low expectations. We're coming off firing the coach, Robert Saleh. Aaron Rodgers came in, did his thing. It wasn't really impressive. And he ended up with, he ended up going to Pittsburgh. And now Justin Fields is in here, really no pressure. And he's been probably the worst quarterback I've ever seen. And that's saying a lot because I'm a Jets fan and I'm used to this. I'm not new to this, I'm true to this. And just seeing him struggle like this just breaks my heart, man. Because it is an insult to call a quarterback a running back. Um, but Justin Fields is great at running the ball. And I can see a scenario in which he goes to a team and is kind of like a quasi wildcat quarterback where, he's kind of used in special packages, kind of like a Taysom Hill, and is kind of in there. Maybe he'll throw a short pass, or maybe he'll run, be a decoy or something. I can see a world where Justin Fields is successful in the NFL. It's just not going to be as a starting quarterback. He's not going to be a successful guy dropping back 25, 30 times and making all those throws. So, hey, this is a scenario in which you know, Aaron Glenn finally bit the bullet and is going to start Tyrod Taylor, because to this point he had been consistently toying with the media and being like, "Well, I don't know who's going to start this week. Is it going to be Justin Fields? Is it going to be Tyrod Taylor? Who knows?" And it always was Justin Fields. And now he finally has some stones and made it Tyrod Taylor. And I don't give a damn about any of the draft picks. I don't care. Because I've seen the Jets squander draft picks before, and it doesn't matter. But I just want to see this team be competitive. I want to see this team go out on a week-to-week basis and give it their all. And you know what? You got to give credit where credit is due. There's been a lot of close games for this Jets team. There's been very few instances this season where they've gone into a game and have been just completely outmatched from the jump. Obviously, the Bills game comes to mind. Yeah, they were they were in it for a little bit against New England on Thursday. They kind of let that slip. Well, they did let it slip. But there's been a lot of games where they've been pretty close and they haven't been successful. Then they have the back-to-back wins, and then they played pretty well against New England. Ultimately, ended up falling short. I want to see this team be successful because there's no world in which the Jets benefit from just completely tanking and being completely terrible a year after firing their head coach. So the fact that we're going to try and be more competitive and go out there and try and win more games is ultimately a good thing for the Jets. So we'll see how this ends up playing out. But that does it for this first part of the Kevin Blekicki Show. We will be back after these messages. We are back with more of the Kevin Blekicki Show, and we just had a great week of NFL football, a lot of close games, and there's a lot of surprises that are in the NFL right now. We got to talk about them because these standings are pretty wild. You have let's start up in the AFC. You have the Denver Broncos at 9-2, being the top seed in the AFC. No one saw that coming this year. Shout out Bo Nix. Then the number 2 seed is the New England Patriots at 9-2, and this actually makes me mad because the Patriots had a dynasty, fell off, were terrible, and were able to rebuild all in the same amount of time that it took for the Jets to still not have made the playoffs since 2010. So that absolutely crushes me. I hate to see that. Then the 3 seed is the Colts at 8-2. They're doing incredibly well. Shout out to Daniel Jones. The 4 seed at 6-4 is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then the Buffalo Bills are 7-3 at the 5 seed. The 6 seed is the 7-4 Chargers. And would you look at that? The Jacksonville Jaguars at 6-4 are a playoff team. Now, some of the teams that are not in the playoff picture right now, you have 2 5-5 teams which have the same record but are in vastly different ways of being right now. You have the Chiefs, who are 5-5. They just lost to the Broncos, and their season is slipping away. And a lot of people are writing them off and saying that they're not going to make the postseason. We'll break down their schedule. We'll see if they have a chance of making it to the playoffs. And then you have the Ravens, who started off 1-5. They were missing Lamar Jackson for a good portion of the year. And now all of a sudden, they've won 4 games in a row. They're back at 500, and they're playing their best football at the right time. We'll see how far they can make it if they can make it into the playoffs. And then, just to wrap things up, you have the Titans at 1-9, who are the worst team in football. And then we switch over to the NFC. The Philadelphia Eagles are 8-2, the defending champions. Then you have the Rams, who are the 2 seed, also at 8-2. Then you have the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are 7-3 and are the 3rd seed right now in the NFC. That is insane. I never thought I would see the day. Then at 4 are the 6-4 Tampa Bay Bucks. The 5th seed is the Seattle Seahawks at 7-3. And then you have the Green Bay Packers at 6-3-1. And then rounding out the NFC is the San Francisco 49ers at 7-4. Some notable teams that are not in the postseason are the Detroit Lions, who are 6-4. And then you have the Carolina Panthers, who no one expected to be this good this late in the season. They are above 500, and they are 6-5. At this point in the season, the Dallas Cowboys are 4-5-1. They're not looking good. Minnesota's 4-6. And then the worst team in the NFC is the Giants at 2-9. So there's some teams that we did not expect to be good, who are good, and some teams that we did not expect to be bad, who are bad. And let's talk about these 5-5 AFC teams. Let's start off with the Chiefs. They are coming off a close loss on the road to the Denver Broncos. Heartbreaking, crushing. They had chances to win that game, and they didn't take advantage of it. In that game, Travis Kelce became the all-time Chiefs leader in touchdowns, so shout out to him. Congratulations on that accomplishment. But the Chiefs are looking vulnerable, and they're looking beatable, and they're looking like the worst version of this current iteration of the Chiefs in this Mahomes, Kelce, Andy Reid era. And they are at risk at missing the playoffs. They have to play the Colts, who are 8-2, the number 3 team in the AFC this season, but they get them at home. So maybe, that loud Arrowhead noise is able to affect Daniel Jones, and he's not able to get the job done. Then they play on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys. That was a game that we thought was going to be a really good game coming into this season. Now it's not looking so good, and but it is a winnable game for the Chiefs, absolutely. Then they play the Texans. That's another winnable game. Then they play the Chargers for the second time this year, but they play them at home. They played them in week 1 of the season in Brazil, and now they play them at home. So I think that they have a chance to beat the Chiefs. I don't really think that highly of the Chargers. So the Chiefs can definitely win that game as well. They're going to beat the Titans. There's no doubt about that. Then they have to play the Broncos, but they also get them at home the second time around. Maybe they can look at the film and see what they did wrong and try and fix that. And then they play the Raiders, and they'll win that game. So as I think it stands, the Chiefs are going to win all of their games, but it's going to come down to the Colts and the Broncos, those 2 games, to determine the season for them. Now, if they win both of them, I think that they're going to be in the playoffs. That will put them at 12-5, I should say. and that'll more than likely overwhelmingly get them in the postseason. If they lose one of them, that will put them at 11-6, and they're in a good spot to make the playoffs at that spot. Then if they lose both of them, then they go 10-7, and that's still a pretty decent record. That's still pretty good, but you want to win as many games as you can. Everyone's kind of jumping off the Chiefs bandwagon, but I still think that they have a pretty good chance at making the playoffs. I think if they're able to at least win one of those tough games between the Colts and the Broncos, I think that they will end up making the playoffs. Then we also have to talk about the Baltimore Ravens, because the Ravens started off this season 1-5. They were missing Lamar Jackson for a good portion of it. They have since won their last 4 games in a row to get back to 5-5. So while the Chiefs are struggling at 5-5, the Ravens are thriving at 5-5. This week they play the Jets. They're going to win that game by 50. The Jets are terrible. I should know. I'm a Jets fan. Then they play the Bengals at home. That should be a win because they're terrible. Then they play the Steelers. And, you expect Lamar Jackson to still be healthy at that point, barring another injury. I think that the Ravens are better than the Steelers, but I think that they might split that series. And then they have to go and play the Bengals again on the road. That's going to be a win. Then they're going to have to play the Patriots. It is at home, but that's going to be a tough matchup. And then they play They play the Packers at Green Bay. So that's also going to be a tough test. So I think that the Ravens kind of have a harder schedule, but I also think that the Ravens are a better team than the Chiefs, especially when you have Lamar and Derrick Henry back there. Because when Derrick Henry was the only one back there, teams are kind of able to tee off on him and not really respect the running game. So I think that both teams can make the postseason, but I think that the Ravens get in. And honestly, I do kind of think that the Chiefs get in too. I think that both of these 5-5 teams are going to find a way to make the playoffs. We'll see if I am right or wrong about that. But we also have to talk about this Ja'Marr Chase and Jalen Ramsey situation, because why would you spit on another man? For whatever reason, they were going at it. They were beefing. Ja'Marr Chase spit on Jalen Ramsey. Then Jalen Ramsey swung on him, and then Ja'Marr Chase, after the game, was saying, "No, I didn't spit on him." Meanwhile, there is 4K evidence that he spit on him. So he went out and pretty much lied, much like Shane Beamer did when there was video evidence of him doing exactly what he said that he wasn't going to do, or what he didn't do. And now he has to face a 1-game suspension for being an idiot. But the last NFL topic that we have to talk about is Shedeur Sanders making his NFL debut. And look, it did not go well. He went 4 of 16 for 47 yards, and he threw an interception. And his QBR is 2.4. Just for reference, the perfect rating is 100. So that is terrible. He was not good by any stretch of the imagination, but to be fair, he was put in a horrible position. He wasn't getting first team reps, which is, common in the NFL for backups to not be getting first team reps. But I mean, we all know the situation with Shedeur Sanders. He was a 5th round pick, and he was projected to be a first rounder, and he fell all the way to the 5th round. There was probably some character concerns that the teams were worried about, and the Browns drafted him, and it doesn't seem like they wanted to. It seemed like there was collusion in the NFL. They're like, we're gonna draft him to the worst franchise in the NFL. I mean, maybe the only team that's worse than the Jets, especially since they lost to them the last time that they played. But I mean, Shedeur Sanders was put in a position to fail. He wasn't expecting to come into the game, although it is your job as an NFL quarterback to always be prepared. And I really don't have anything against Shedeur Sanders. He was great when he was at Colorado. I do think he deserved to have his number retired because he was great for them, and their program has been notoriously bad. But now he's in the NFL. And I wish him nothing but the best. But people are just so weird. There's two players in sports that get just weird reactions and weird attention to them, and that is Angel Reese and Shedeur Sanders. For whatever reason, people seem to hate those people so much for reasons that are beyond me. But I digress with that. We're going to wrap up this show by talking about some college football. Um, so we have to talk about these new rankings that came out. First, we have to talk about there's no change at the top three. Ohio State, Indiana, and Texas A&M are still 1, 2, and 3. I think that Texas A&M should at least be number 2 because a lot of people are going to really talk down on them for being in that position against South Carolina, but coming back from 30 to 3 is definitely impressive, and I think that they should be rewarded for that. Georgia moves up to number 4 after Alabama loses to Oklahoma, and as a result, Oklahoma is now in the top 10 at number 8. Texas Tech is number 5. Ole Miss is number 6. Oregon is 7. Notre Dame is 9. And Alabama is 10. I mean, I do, watch as much college football as I can. I do work on Saturdays. So for a large chunk of the day, I'm not able to watch college football. So maybe this is just me not knowing ball, but I mean, Texas A&M is the 5th best team in the country. Okay. I mean, they better hope that they stay that way because that way they don't have to be one of the top 4 ranked conference champions that gets screwed for winning their conference championship and getting a bye week, but not having it be at their college stadium, but being at a neutral site. So right now, if everything sticks, they would have a home playoff game and play Tulane, who right now is ranked number 24, but would be the 12th seed because you have to have a group of 5 team in there. And then Notre Dame is still in the top 10. I don't understand them being above Alabama. And I was watching the interview with the commissioner or one of the chairs of the playoff committee, and he was saying that they value Notre Dame's losses over Miami's wins, which is why they're ranked above Miami. Or they look at the losses and they think that Notre Dame's losses are more impressive than Miami's losses. The only thing there is that Notre Dame lost to Miami. So they value losing, but not to the team that you lost. It's stupid. I mean, they don't deserve any more conversation regarding them. And then to wrap up this show, we got to quickly talk about James Franklin. He got the head coaching job at Virginia Tech. Now, y'all know I am a South Carolina fan because I went there. I grew up a Notre Dame fan, but I do enjoy Virginia Tech football. They're up there with like NC State as some of the teams that I like to see do well, but I'm not necessarily a fan of their program. But I did go to a Virginia Tech game a few years ago, and it was a lot of fun. So I think that James Franklin's going to do a great job over there. I definitely think it's a home run hire, and we'll see how he ends up doing over there at Virginia Tech. There's going to be a lot of high profile names looking for jobs and a lot of attractive openings for those coaches. So we'll see how that plays out. But that does it for this edition of the Kevin Blekicki Show. Thank you for tuning in. As always, you can follow me on social media across all platforms at Kevin Blekicki, and we'll see you again next week. Have a good one.